Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm a scrapbooking photographer, Linda's my name, and today I am taking part in a monthly hop on YouTube for Stamping Like It's Hot. Now this month we're talking about stamping on photos. A little bit further on in the video I will conduct an experiment on the photos with different inks, so stick around for that. But initially I just want to set this layout up around the photo so I know where it's going to go. Now I want a white frame around the outside, just using the white daisy background. So using the cardstock to create that and then popping this photo of the signpost down in the right hand corner. I don't often put photos right on the edge, but in this instance I am. Mainly because I'm using some leftover papers and I've got very minimal pieces, so if I go right to the edge it saves on space that I need to use the offcuts on. These papers came from a Fresh Air workshop pack, and quite a few of them are now obsolete and have been changed up into different shades. So I have gone through my stash and through my old paper bin and found little bits that I can add in to make it all match up nicely. Mocha is still a current colour, so that's the one I'm using here just to highlight a few little bits and pieces. So when I put that photo down in the right hand corner, you'll notice that I've left the top left unstuck so that I can slip out the photo that's there at the moment and stamp on it before popping it back in and sticking it down. This left-hand page caused a few headaches as I was putting it together, mainly because I had such minimal of the accent paper, and I started off trying to make things even with the right-hand side, and that didn't work, so then I tried to offset it. But then I thought 3 lines of the green cardstock looked better than 2. So I add a third one in the bottom and then decide that 3 even sized ones would look even better. So this little piece of offcut is being divided to fit behind the photos, just to give the impression of it going all the way across. In hindsight, I could have left the 2 wider pieces of green with the narrow one at the top, but I do in the end here decide to put 3 even sized, I think they're 3 inches wide, evenly spaced throughout the 12 by 12 piece of white daisy, and then put the offcuts in between to join up the photos. I use another little piece of offcut down in the right hand corner of that page, again going right to the edge, just as a bit of an accent to a journaling box that I pop in there with the lighter coloured paper to write on. Now this pack came with some stickers, so I'm adding one in there but accenting it with the mocha as well, so we've got 3 areas of that colour across the double page layout. And once I've added this little Fitbit counter, it's time to stamp on our photo and follow the experiment. Okay, so I've got 4 different photos here, all printed on glossy paper, so straight from the manufacturer, which is what most of us end up with using. And in my ink side, I've got 4 inks I want to try. I've got the black water-based, the white daisy pigment-based ink, the intense black solvent-based permanent ink, and the archival black solvent-based permanent ink. So what I've done is just put a quick stamp on here, Life is Beautiful, and I thought we'd just experiment with the different inks on these 3 different photos. I want to use that one on the actual page, so let's pop these 2 to one side for now, and let's try the intense black first. This is one that I have tended to earmark to stamp the outlines if I'm colouring, but let's see how it stamps onto the photo paper. Okay, so you can see that it isn't particularly sharp, and it's certainly not what I would call intense black. So we'll wipe that one off. Okay, so I've wiped that as best I can, and we'll give the pigment based one a go. I haven't used this for years, so it's pretty wet. I don't think it's going to be very good either. Okay, so that is certainly sharper. I'm actually quite impressed with that. It's a little bit flaky around the edges, but I like it better than I like the intense black on the photo. It's quite a wet ink, and it's gone in between all the letters, so I'll have to go and give this a good clean before we try the other two. Right, so I'll just pop that over to one side to dry. Okay, we'll bring in another one. We've got two here that we can try, and I'll use the same stamp, but I'll do the water-based one next. I'm purposely leaving the archival black till last because I'm really hoping that's going to do the job the best. Okay, so this is water-based. Interesting. That has done actually a pretty good job. Look at the difference between those two. Hugely different. So that's just the water-based ink. So that's encouraging. Leave that one here. And let's give the archival one a go. Let's see. Again, not nearly as good as the plain one. So let's see how dry it is. Pretty dry. So that's very interesting. We've got this one that was done with the intense black ink. This one was done with the archival black ink. And this one was done with the water-based dye ink, and this is the pigment ink. So the winner, and the one I'm going to use, is just the normal ink, which these to one side. That pigment ink will take quite a while to dry. So on this photo, this is the island called Tirimartangi Island. We were on the mainland, and we were looking out to Tirimartangi Island, knowing that we were going to ferry across to it the next day and stay there for 3 sleeps, photographing the bird life on the island. So what I want to do up here is write a word, "This is where we're going," or write a sentence, "This is where we're going," with some arrows. So let's do that, and we'll be doing it in that ink, which is not what I thought we'd be doing. Yeah, so as I build this stamp up, we've got the H I've moved over here, but I've left the T there so we know that the spacing's right. This is where, and I've got the E here and the R, and I need this E again. So we're coming over here and putting that down. So I'm just going to put it straight on here and have faith. Okay, so it's all spaced out, but I do need to make sure that the spaces don't get filled with ink off the stamp pad. So leaving the T where it is, I can now bring back the H. And put that E over here. Those off, and that should fit in there. So to do the second line, I'm going to space it out the same way. It's just going to say we're going. So I need to move it up a little bit because of the G that will hang down below. So once I've got it in the right area on the block, I can line it up again, and again I will move that G towards the end once I know that the spacing's right. So then it fits on there nicely. I can stamp that on, making sure that there's nothing on the block, of course, and stamp that directly on the photo. It's interesting how it does stick to the photo quite a bit. You have to be careful pulling it off. So this time I pull it towards me rather than risk smudging what I put on the line above. And then I'll move the G and the E back into those prepared gaps and take off the surplus letters and place them where we need them. So then I need to find an arrow, and I find one in this set, which is a really old stamp of the month. And I just want to pop 3 arrows there pointing down to that island. So this is the island that we then caught the ferry to the next day, and we ended up there for 3 sleeps while we were photographing the bird life there, which was just fantastic. So now I can take out that photo and put this one in, and I'll have a spare because I had one just in case I got it wrong and had to do it again, and now it worked first time, so I've got a spare one. And just remembering to stick down the top left hand corner of the signposts as well. So just a matter of finishing the layout off now. So the next thing I'm going to do is the heading up here. And I'll do this a little bit quicker because it will be the same method as I did on the photo, just making sure these letters are spaced out in the right place. So the name of the park was Shakespeare Park. So obviously there's a couple of letters that double up. So I have spaced them out properly, and I'll do it again in the same black ink, just across the top, and then move those letters around into the spaces that we've pre-made. So that's a really good way when you've got a word that has, 2 or more letters that are the same. If you leave the space for it, then it's easier to get it in the right place later, rather than trying to line it up by eye. I know there have been a few new subscribers to my channel over the last few days, so thank you very much for joining me on this scrapbooking journey. I really appreciate your support. Remember that this is a hop too, so not only is there this video, but there's all the ones in the playlist with lots of different ideas and experiments, I'm sure, of how to stamp on a photo. I know I'm looking forward to seeing what the other creators come up with in their videos of stamping on a photo, so I hope you join me in finding out. So I want to add a few sprigs and leaves to this layout just to soften it a little bit, but I don't have any that are the right colour, so I'm going to cheat and use these ones from the Evergreen pack and turn them into mocha. So I'm just going to use the stamp pad directly on top of them and smush it around so that all the leaves become a darker brown rather than just the craft paper brown. And it's interesting because yesterday a friend of mine, Margaret, was talking to me about junk journals and how you can use your scrap paper in junk journals. So I can assure you, Margaret, if you're watching, that this piece of background paper will be saved in readiness. So I'll just stick those in now, and they match in nicely, bringing a little bit more of that mocha colour into the page. As you can see, I've completed my journaling off camera, just explaining that there were 4 of us in Shakespeare Park this day. The day before we took the ferry over to Tiritiri Matangi Island, and we had a lovely day uphill and down Dale, doing our 15,000 steps that you can see there, photographing sheep and all sorts of things that were in the park. So the last thing I'm adding here are just a couple of little enamel drops, and that is the double page layout complete. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and happy crafting.